Welcome, everyone. Welcome and thank you so much for joining this all hands meeting. We are really glad that you're here and excited that you're able to join us. So, just to give you some background on this, it's actually traditional for the Oppia team to do a strategy update each year. The last one we did was in January 2021. So, it's been quite a while. And I wanted to make sure that you all know what's going on and what the team as a whole is doing because it's pretty important that you know what you're contributing towards and that you have a chance to weigh in on this. So along the way, if you think that something's not going in the right direction or there's an opportunity to help people that we are missing, please just feel free to reach out and we can definitely talk about it. So just to give you an idea of how this session will go, we'll start by talking a little bit about Oppia's goals, and then we'll move on to highlight some of our accomplishments in 2021, as well as plans for 2022. I've asked representatives from different teams to give these updates so that you can also meet some of the amazing people who've been helping out with the project. Due to time limitations, we aren't going to be able to cover every single team, but we do try to rotate things. So if your team isn't mentioned here, look out for an update in the next strategy meeting, which we are hoping to do more frequently nearer the end of 2022. But let's see how things go. Also, after the presentation, we are also going to have a live Q&A with the speakers. So please take a moment to go to slido.com in your browser and enter this number so that you can ask questions. There should be a direct link in the Meet chat as well. Let me just paste that. Okay, that's great. Akshay has already pasted it. You can vote up other questions as well, and we will answer the top ones. If you think of a question while the speaker is presenting, it's totally fine to add it during the presentation, so don't worry about it. Okay, so now that the logistics are done, I want to take a couple of minutes to quickly outline the state of things in the world. As you probably know, there's a serious global equity gap in education, and there's many students around the world who still don't meet minimum standards for reading and mathematics. These statistics are from UNESCO, and the gap disproportionately affects lower socioeconomic status families, especially in regions like Sub-Saharan Africa and other places around the world. Our mission as Oppia is to improve access to high quality, affordable education for all students, especially those who can't attend school on a regular basis, or those students who don't have access to a good educational experience. Now, one nice thing about online lessons is that they scale well, because often, students don't necessarily have direct in-person support that they need. However, many of the free online learning materials disproportionately benefit the affluent and highly educated because they assume high literacy, fluency in English, stable, wide bandwidth internet connections for video, and so on. And this causes the gap between lower and higher socioeconomic status students to widen. So our aim as an organization and as a community is to narrow this gap instead, so that lower socioeconomic status students benefit more from what we offer, and we can help to close the gap. Additionally, many students are currently returning to school or in the process of starting to return after a long period of COVID. But there's many students who have fallen behind, and some of them are at risk of not returning, which means there's actually an even greater need nowadays for remedial learning support. So as you can imagine, this means that we need to design Oppia so that these use cases are taken into account. And that's why this project is actually quite a challenging one. But as a community, we can come together to build something bigger than what each of us can individually contribute and make a meaningful difference together. So here's a quick summary of our goal, which is improve access to high quality education by creating effective and engaging lessons that reach millions of students in a sustainable way. There are 4 parts to this goal, and I'm going to explain how, as a community, we are thinking about each of these things. Firstly, it's really critically important that we ensure that the lessons are as accessible as possible if you want to reduce the gap. Now, access can mean a lot of different things. For example, learners who don't have internet access, learners who don't speak English, folks who lack access to devices, folks who aren't literate or totally new to technology, and so on. If we tackle all of these at once, we probably won't succeed at any of them. So for this year, we've decided to focus on the first 2 categories, which is learners who have limited internet access and learners who don't speak English. In particular, 2 things we really want to nail this year are, firstly, launching the Oppia Android app, which would allow all the curated lessons to be played offline on low-end devices in a way that uses minimal memory and bandwidth. And we also want to work on speed improvements for the website, because the website being slow actually has a disproportionate effect in countries where the internet isn't fast. The second thing that we really want to do is to make sure that Oppia can be used easily by learners who don't speak English. So to this end, we are going to make sure that the entire experience is fully translated in key languages, such as Brazilian Portuguese. And we are also working on other languages like Swahili, Spanish, Arabic, Hindi, Igbo, Yoruba, which helps make the app accessible to communities in Kenya, Nigeria, Tanzania, India, the Middle East, and many countries in Latin America, where students aren't necessarily fluent in English. The next thing is we also need to ensure that the lessons themselves are effective and engaging. So this year, we are planning to finish the math curriculum that we started and put it to the test. This includes conducting effectiveness studies with research partners and getting external validation and feedback from teachers and education professionals so that parents and caregivers can trust what we offer. Just to let you know our focus, we aren't planning this year to do major curriculum work on other topics besides math. Although we are doing some small experiments on the side with science lessons based on feedback we've received from nonprofit partners that their students would like to see some of that as well. So we are doing a little bit of experimentation on that, but our main focus for this year is to finish the math curriculum. Thirdly, we want to ensure that lots of students benefit from what we are building. And one big theme that's becoming increasingly important is to continue work on raising awareness until we can reach at least 1 billion students per year. For this year, again, with the idea of focusing, we are going to be concentrating on the top of the growth funnel, especially the Android app, which is just going to, about to get launched. That is, we are planning to raise awareness and making it so that people want to use the app in the first place and want to recommend it to others. Concretely, we are aiming to get to 300,000 users on the web and 15,000 on the nascent Android app. Now, growth is a newer area for us as a team, right? Because we've sort of like been spending more time in historically on the technological side and the lesson side of things. But it's a rapidly growing area, and Anna will be giving you an update on this in a little bit. As a brief preview, we are planning to pursue growth both through a direct-to-consumer approach, as well as through partnerships with nonprofits on the ground who already serve students. This year, our focus markets are Nigeria, Kenya, and Brazil, followed by Spanish Latin America, the Middle East, India, and Ghana. As it turns out, the largest blocker is actually translations, which ties in with our goals to make the entire learning experience fully accessible in different languages. So that's how everything fits together. In addition, one thing we found is that a challenge to adoption is that teachers don't currently have a way to see what's going on with their students' learning, because we've designed Oppia so far very much around the students. And so one of the projects that we are going to start working on this year is implementing functionality for group learning, so that then teachers can make use of it, and then their students can as well. Now, finally, I want to reiterate that since this is a long-term project and quite a tricky one, right, it's important to enjoy the journey. To this end, we are also focusing on ensuring that Oppia is set up structurally to carry out its mission. Some of this includes scaling leadership to become a more self-sustaining community, as well as investing in team organization to ensure that everyone is happy and well cared for, and doing something that is meaningful and that fits in more of their life. We are also working on fundraising and grant applications to support key technical and outreach projects. So, for the newcomers who've joined us in the past 10 minutes, if you have any questions on these goals or on anything at all, please don't hesitate to ask a question on Slido. You can do that by going to slido.com and entering the number on this slide. Okay, so let's now take a quick look back at 2021 to see what we achieved and to celebrate some of these achievements. To give you some context, overall, I think 2021 was actually quite a tough year for Oppia and the community, especially with all the issues surrounding the pandemic. Many of us needed to take care of our loved ones and deal with upheavals to home and school life. And at one point, I think I knew 15 people personally who were, having to deal with things like this. And so it's just been a difficult year for everybody. So against this backdrop, I'm glad and grateful to say that we still did make quite a lot of progress as a global team. And this really is thanks to your combined efforts. So I'm going to talk about a few of these achievements and then pass it on to other team members to give updates as well. But really the flavor here is thank you all very much. So on the lesson side, we created and launched 22 new lessons for the topics of division and expressions and equations. These lessons also use the new math expression interactions that were built by Prayush Dauda a couple of years ago. So thank you, and a big shout out to all the contributors who helped bring these lessons to life and contributed to the revision cards, arts, translations, and voiceovers. Uh, I'd also like to give some special recognition to the learner feedback team, which has successfully compiled learner feedback on many of these lessons through at least 30 feedback sessions and helped the broader team understand where things are going well and what improvements can be made. So thank you. To give you a sneak preview for this year, we actually have a lot of lessons in the pipeline. We are planning to release percentages, decimals, length measurement, geometry, and data representation. All of these are already at least partway being worked on, and some of them are very close to completion. We also want to supplement these lessons with practice questions, as well as all the necessary skill and revision cards. This should bring the curriculum to the level of a fairly complete primary math syllabus, and then we can then refine and develop that further as time goes by. But that seems like a good place to aim for a basic offering. Now, one thing that was pretty cool was that in June, we conducted a large-scale pilot with INJAS. INJAS is one of the largest educational nonprofits in Palestine, and this was coordinated by Ruba Zitawi as part of the Outreachy program. So this pilot showed really good results from pre-test to post-test, as you can see on the slides. The setup was that 3 facilitators would help 100 students, and initially it was a bit tricky to get things set up because there were more students than computers. But later on, we found that assigning 2 to 3 students per computer worked quite well. And the nice thing is that after some initial guidance by the facilitators, the students actually started helping each other and learning more independently, which was really cool. I want to point out that one thing that made a lot of this quite tricky also was that during this project, which happened in the first half of 2021, Palestine actually became a war zone. So when your country is at war, we thought that education might actually be the last thing on students' minds. But it turns out that having something productive to do actually helped provide the children with some stability and actually helped take their minds off the general situation. So I think this is one example of how it's important to talk to the people who are using the lessons and not necessarily assume things about the situation. I'm also very happy to announce that we managed to secure some funding and a research partnership from an organization called EdTech Hub, which is an international research partnership which advises governments around the world on educational technology solutions. Only 13 projects out of more than 100 were selected for this partnership. So we are currently on track to do a study in Kenya with them this year, using the new Android app together with a local partner in Kenya, Nairobits. So this is also a great milestone for Oppia, and we're glad to have the opportunity for a deep dive study with a well-regarded international research organization. Because in addition to ensuring that the lessons are effective, getting objective third-party results can also help with increasing credibility and open up new government engagement and scaling opportunities, thus helping us reach a wider audience. So now I'll hand over to Diana to talk about improvements that we made to the learner experience in 2021.
Thanks, Sean. So as far as the learner experience goes, a lot has been tweaked and updated over time. Especially, it's actually not pictured here. I just realized now, but we added a new learner dashboard. So basically now when somebody signs into their account, we now create and make sure that the learner experience is the center of their experience, and make sure that it's very easy to understand and explore some of the different lessons that we can offer to them and help them pick up where they left off. So there's a lot of other things that we've also done as well. You can see some samples of the curriculum pages here, but we have so much more that I'll talk about later that we're planning to improve this year. So it's very exciting. But I'll hand it over to Anu to talk about translations and language accessibility.
Hey, everyone. So I have been leading the language accessibility team here, and as Sean said, language accessibility is key to Oppia's effectiveness overall. So I'm glad to say that in the last year we have 12 active language crews and 60 plus reviewers. We have already completed language accessibility in Arabic and Portuguese. And the international the content run through very, very soon. And I just wanted to give a shout out to all the volunteers, because this is like a full-on human-driven work that volunteers do. Reviewers review it, and the level of detail that they go to and the commitment that they have is amazing. And this team is this team because of all the work that everyone listed in this slide is doing. Not just them, their entire teams are doing. So huge shout out to all of them. In addition to this, I also wanted to highlight the work that contributor experience team is doing. So Sagang and your team. I mean, you've been releasing features after features tirelessly, and you've been giving feedback after feedback. So thank you so much for that. Yeah, and that's a segue to hand over to Sagang to talk about the contributor dashboard.
Thanks, Anu. Really appreciate the shout out. So I lead the contributor experience team, and the main area of Oppia that we work on is the contributor dashboard. So just for some background, the contributor dashboard helps to power some of the translations in that it helps, it allows users to contribute translations to lessons and also practice questions. And then reviewers can look at these translations and practice questions and either accept them or reject them for additional revision. And so this past year, we sort of did a soft launch, mostly focusing on the translation aspect of things. And we did get a lot of user feedback. We fixed a lot of bugs, some critical, some minor. And some highlights of the features that we've released is one is that we created a dashboard for admins to look at translation contribution statistics. Another is that we've launched and allowed the translation of lesson rules and interactions rather than just plain text content of lessons. And we've also allowed reviewers to edit submitted translation and question suggestions. And to sort of understand the impact of this, we've currently now translated over 787,000 words over 13 languages through the contributor dashboard. Thanks to all of the volunteer translators for that. And some of the projects that we're working on next are we're doing a revamp of the translation review dashboard view. And we're also working to shore up some of the pain points on the translation submitter side of things. And I think we've learned that through this project, we have a large impact on both user time of volunteers translating lessons, but also on lesson accessibility as well. And finally, we're also planning on revamping the administrator features, such as being able to have more insight on all of these translation and practice questions. Yeah, and with that, I'll hand it over to Vojta to talk about the Python 3 migration.
Okay, thanks. Hi, everyone. So last year we had one, I think, bit overdue task, and that was the migration to Python 3. As you may probably know, some of you, that Python 2 was discontinued, I think, at the end of 2021, and like even maybe before that. But we had still some parts of the code base that were in Python 2, and we used a lot of libraries that used Python 2. So the task last year was to get replace them with newer versions. This is represented at this image. We migrated a lot of different parts. We migrated the user management of data, search management. We also upgraded the how we do migrations in our server. This was done by a team, but I think I want to shout out Brian Rodriguez here, because he did most of the design works and many crucial parts of the migration. But also other people joined in. I think right now we are almost complete. There are tiny loose ends that we need to finish up, but I think this is completed and we are safe for a few years now. We also, like, from this, we took out that we want to make sure that we migrate earlier than needed, so that it doesn't happen like we are the last last ones running Python 2. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And I'm now back to Sean.
Yeah, that is one of the perils of technical projects, keeping up with the latest technology, especially when the old stuff just disappears. So, okay, so you've heard a little bit about the different things that we've been doing last year. And now let's look forward to this year. I know some of 2022 has already passed, but there's still more of it left to come. And I'm going to pass it over to Ben to talk about our plans for the Android app.
Thanks, Sean. So as Sean mentioned earlier, 2022 for Android is a year of figuring out how to reach students in the most effective way possible. Given that there's such a large need, especially in countries that have generally less internet connectivity, getting the Android app in the hands of students is more important now than ever. From the technical side, we have a release that's going out later this month, Alpha MR4, that's introducing a bunch of new features around analytics collection, algebraic expressions, and a bunch of bug fixes that have been contributed by folks over the last few months. From the technical side, we think that with that release and the introduction of policy links, that we're pretty much code complete for a larger launch later in July that we're calling Beta MR1. The major distinction here is that with the beta launch, we're actually going to be able to reach a lot more students, and we're really excited to see that happen. The current plan is to ramp up our QA testing to prepare for that launch. And I want to specifically note that the work that's been done so far has been the culmination of more than 3 years of work from over 140 contributors. So I just want to do a general thanks to the community because it's been a massive effort. And we're really excited to see the app get in the hands of more students. But we're not done after that launch. We still have one more major feature that's planned this year, which is lesson download support. One of the major advantages of Android is that we're able to provide the lessons offline. But while that is the case for the beta launch because we're embedding lessons, it doesn't scale as we add more lessons and languages over time. Downloads is essential to the long-term scaling of the app. And it's probably the most complicated project we've done yet to date on the team. We kind of consider this to be the final piece of making sure the app is well-rounded. And after it's done, we're expecting a lot fewer features and more smaller until the app is ready for a global launch, which is planned for sometime in 2023. So very excited. We're looking forward to seeing this scaling effort ramp up this year. Now I'm going to hand it over to Diana to talk about the learner experience on web.
Thanks, Ben. So in addition to all of the really, really exciting work that's going on Android, and we definitely want to continue to support that on the website, I think one of the things this year we were thinking about when it comes to the strategy is how do we continue to evolve the web experience? Effectively, the web platform's been around since Oppia started, and a lot of the learning experience has stayed relatively the same. And while it has been shown to be very effective in a lot of different ways, there were definitely some key areas that we wanted to focus on improving over time, some of which we've already talked about a bit. So the three main themes as far as the improvements that we're striving towards this year fall into these categories. First is we are trying to revamp our learning experience, making sure that at its core that no learner ever feels like they can get stuck. That as long as a learner is putting in the effort, that they have the motivation and the opportunity to be able to learn on our platform, that will continue to make sure that they can progress. And this means doing things, anything from like fixing our onboarding to being able to help address issues with our content, or even helping to redirect the learner if they're lacking in foundational knowledge to be able to progress in a particular topic. So one of the most prominent examples of this is lesson checkpointing. A lot of learners get really frustrated whenever they leave in the middle of a lesson and they have to start all over again. And the amount of time that it takes to be able to finish a lesson can vary a lot depending on the student's original knowledge. So this is definitely something that we're focusing on, and so you can see in the mock right there what like a little sneak peek of what it'll look like, but we have a really awesome set of folks working on it from the LACE quality team. And in general, I want to shout out the LACE quality team for all of the work that they've been doing very rapidly to be able to improve the learner experience. But definitely in that area, there's a lot of work that we can do. So I think it'll be really exciting to see it at the end of this year. And then the second big bucket of work that we're doing, it surrounds internationalization and localization. As the point has been hammered in repeatedly, non-English language support is super important for all of our users. And there are aspects of our website that cannot be translated today. So we want to make sure that we can serve all of these learners just as well, no matter what language that they're learning in. So that'll include making sure that we can translate all of the pieces of our website and make it easy for any learner to navigate through, but also making sure that we're addressing any potential gaps we might have with translation. It's very likely that there will be gaps that happen at any given point in time. So we want to make sure that there is a seamless fallback for those learners as well. So right here is a very, very rough mock in the middle, but basically illustrates one point where it's like, if a lesson is not available in their selected site language, how can we make sure that they can select an alternative language if they're comfortable with another one? The last piece I'll touch on very briefly is the group learning support. So as Sean mentioned, this is a major blocker to scaling up our efforts. And so we want to make sure that we are able to not only allow a teacher, parent, even like a volunteer from a nonprofit like hosting and using Oppia, but we not only want to allow them to monitor progress, but also proactively provide them information and suggestions from the Oppia platform about how to work with those students best or make the most efficient use of their time. So there's a lot of very interesting work that will go into that, but in general, you can look out for a new group learning kind of feature and dashboard that can be able to help assist in these areas. So a lot of really exciting stuff, but definitely want to continue to shout out all of the LACE team on the internationalization, quality side, even those working on the Android side. There's a lot of work that goes into the web and the learner experience, so definitely cannot do it without them. But now I'll hand it over to Anna to talk about our growth strategy.
Hi, Anna. Are you around?
Can you hear me now?
Yep, you're good.
Sorry, for some reason my headphones stopped working, of course. I was just thanking everyone for the presentations. It was super helpful and super interesting to see all of this. I'm Anna. I lead our Spanish Latin America partnerships team. And I also do some work on the Portuguese sub-Saharan markets as well. So today I want to give you just a summary of what we've been doing in terms of growth and awareness for Oppia. Starting with a brief recap of 2021. So 2021 was what I call the year of structuring. So the go-to-market teams for priority markets were created. A lot of them were consolidated, and the same for our translation operations, which we've talked in great lengths already. In 2022, which I would like to call the year of growing, I highlighted three key areas that I think will be the most important for Oppia. The first one, and I'm sorry I'm repeating myself, but that's how important this is for Oppia. I think we're all in agreement to that, is the translation and localization. And one point that I think I'll highlight is the fact that we need to guarantee that not only that the content is good from a language perspective, but also that it resonates with the local audience, especially since we're talking about young students here. So an important piece for this has been also understanding how our local audiences interact with our UX and getting feedback for them. So we have a bunch of studies being conducted right now, and these will be key for us to achieve our goals in priority markets. The second important piece of our growth will be our direct-to-consumer strategy. The teams are now hiring volunteers that will be dedicated to both paid and organic media marketing strategies. So Facebook, Google Ads, for example. On the other hand, blog, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of those social networks that we're all familiar with. For example, in Spanish Latin America, we just brought in a volunteer marketeer through Volunteer Match to help us with this. And this will be very important to raise our awareness, to get the word out there, for people to get more familiar with Oppia's brand, with the product itself. And since we are gearing up for the launch as well in the summer, the beta launch, this will be important as well to get more users in these priority markets. And then our third pillar here for growth will be through partnerships. And within partnerships in itself is, of course, a very large universe that we could spend hours talking about. But we're focusing on three different types of partnerships. Number one would be partnerships with global organizations. These global organizations like UNICEF, like UNHCR, they allow us the scale and the structure in these markets. So they know the markets very well. They have the right contacts. They have the right programs where we could fit in. So trying to forge relationships here and trying to partner with these organizations is a very good way of getting us where we want to be from a scaling perspective. But then we cannot neglect the importance of regional partnerships. Coneduc is an interesting one. In Mexico, we participated in an event in Mexico organized by Coneduc that introduced us to a bunch of organizations in the markets, across multiple markets in Latin America, that know their markets really well. They know the educational systems. They can provide very localized feedback that can help Oppia be more effective for these markets. And then, of course, local partnerships with smaller organizations, where we can experiment with small pilots. We can conduct UXR studies that are also fundamental for the development of Oppia in these markets. In terms of, in general terms, what are our barriers, or like I like to call them the areas of opportunity, things we need to double down on. This general awareness, right? It's important to increase the awareness of Oppia's brand and product in these markets. And so we can do this through regular launches, regular announcements, with our investment in direct-to-consumer strategies, and also investing in partnerships with large organizations such as UNICEF, for example. Localization, again, making sure that the content feels local and not just translated. And then I think a third big area of opportunity for us is this idea of co-fundraising as the next big thing. So it's really hard to achieve successful partnership goals without access to devices and effective marketing strategy. And so working with organizations that allow us to conduct co-fundraising campaigns where we can both create opportunities for each other is, I think, a big opportunity area in the near future for Oppia. So I'm handing over to Sean now to introduce the country spotlights section, but very happy to answer questions at the end if anyone has them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna. So yeah, as you can see, we've been actually doing a lot of outreach work in our key focus countries, and this is something that's only going to increase as time goes on. So now I'm going to hand it over to Caroline and Julia to give an update on what's been happening in Brazil in particular. And then Lai will also talk more about our current work in Kenya and Nigeria, so that you can get a deep dive into what we are doing in the countries that we are focusing in. So Caroline and Julia, it's all yours.
Thank you, Sean. So hello, everyone. I'm Carol, one of the Brazil team leads. And together with Julia, our other team lead, we are going to give an overview of what we have been doing in Oppia Brazil so far. So Oppia Brazil was created about a year ago, and since then we have been able to do a lot of things. For example, we got the website homepage, classroom, and topic page fully translated to Brazilian Portuguese. We also translated 43 math lessons, and we were able to voice over 22 of these translated lessons. We haven't been able to implement lessons reviews by a Brazilian math researcher, Rita, which have already resulted in some lessons improvements. We did a partnership with Instituto Ser, in which they worked with disabled students and then gave us feedback about the work and the platform. And our team has grown a lot in this period, and we are getting more structure. We have now more than 20 volunteers. We also created an Instagram account for Oppia Brazil. And now I'll hand over to Julia.
Hi everyone, I'm Julia. I'm going to present a little bit more about our team and structure. So our team is made of people from all over our country who collaborate donating their time and skills to improve access to quality education. We are working to structure different areas and coordinators for art, user experience, lessons improvements, marketing, partnerships, translations, and volunteering. This has been really helpful to scale and ensure constant evolution of our work. We are looking forward also to expand marketing and partnerships area, so we are already working on this too. Thank you all volunteers from Brazil that are helping us with that. Okay, so our main blockers now in Brazil are really related to some of the feedback that we are receiving from our partners. They are asking for some really important features as lessons progress saving, lessons content and duration, that currently some of the lessons have too much text and too little images. And they are also asking to add more visual resources inside of the lessons. So we are already working on this. I will hand over to Carol to talk more about this.
Thank you, Julia. So for this year, we are working with a great effort to break some of these blockers. And regarding to the lessons content, as mentioned before, we are going to run an extensive review of the existing lessons, and we are hoping to implement improvements in all math topics. We are also working with a great team of translators. You can go to the previous slide. Oh, thank you. So we are working with a great team of translators, and for these years, we hope to fully adapt Oppia platform and lessons to Brazilian students' needs, and also to translate remaining pages like volunteers and partnerships. And as we start to overcome these blockers, we pretend to expand our partnerships, focusing on government partners. And we also pretend to carry on partnership with school students from private schools to implement pilot plan in elementary public schools. So now I'll hand over again to Julia.
So this year we also have a big art team that is working to create new illustrations to our lessons. Also to convert all existing illustrations from PNG to SVG, which is something really important to launch the Android app. We are also working with a team that will create more institutional and tutorial videos and create graphic designs for social media. We also want to review the copy content from the UX writing perspective and conduct more user studies to have more feedback on the improvements that we are already doing. As I said before, we currently don't have a very structured marketing area, but we are working on it. And hopefully we'll be able to solidify and implement digital marketing strategy, work more with social media, ads campaign, and offline marketing. And we also really are working to grow and structure our Brazil community. We are already recruiting a lot of volunteers. As Carol said, we are working with more than 20 volunteers. We already have a volunteer handbook that we are developing and creating onboarding videos and tutorials to help these new volunteers that will come. And that's all for Brazil. I will pass it on to Lai, who will talk more about their efforts in Kenya and Nigeria. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much from the Brazil team. Hi, everyone. So I'm happy to very quickly talk about about the efforts we put together in Kenya and Nigeria. And just before I start, I'd like to just give a very quick shout out to the amazing volunteers that we have in both countries. Just to mention, I'll mention Funke, very, very amazing outreach intern. Also, we've had Meso, and also on this call, I've also got someone on the call who's also helping us with our marketing efforts, and that would be Ajoke. And so I'll just quickly tell you about what it is we're doing. So basically, to get the work off the ground, we've had to rely heavily on partnerships, and for those partnerships, we've basically broken them down into two. Working very actively with corporates. We did bid to help unlock things like device purchases. They're still in very early stage conversations because in many cases, we're dealing with children who may not have access to devices, right? So we're in very early stage conversations with some of those corporates to help facilitate purchase of devices for some of the NGOs we're working with, so that this can then translate into many of these children having more access to devices that can then be used for the Oppia platform. Also, from a brand awareness perspective, we're doing a lot more work as well, working with Agile Care around building an effective marketing structure that helps us put out word via things like our social media and any other channels that we can find to help put the word out there about what it is that we're doing. Also very actively made some progress on that front, and we hope to do a lot more, of course, in the coming weeks. Of course, in Nigeria as well, Funke is actively supporting as well with helping us find volunteers, onboarding them, and helping to remove any blockers with people who are helping us to translate into Yoruba, and of course, Meso as well for the Igbo language. And on that note, I'll just pass you on to Sean. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Lai. And yeah, so as you can see, there's lots of exciting things going on in the Oppia world, and I'd like to thank each and every one of you for being a part of this. The whole reason the Oppia project succeeds in the first place is because it's a community effort that everyone can participate in, and together we can make a difference in the world. Like, what makes this community truly special is all of you. And I think it's really awesome that there are so many of us helping out from all over the world. This little montage is really only a small fraction. Think of it as maybe the one corner of a larger rectangle of what's truly a global community. And I hope that you take the opportunity to make new friends around the world and learn and grow as an individual about doing something that's meaningful. So in closing, I also want to say that if there's anything at all that we can do to help improve your well-being and or support you, please tell us. And once again, thank you so much for your contributions and help with the Oppia project. It really means a lot, as you can see. All right, so now we are going to start the Q&A session. Please join the Slido link and ask questions. You may have some more after hearing about what the teams are doing. Akshay has just posted a direct link in the chat, and the presenters would be more than happy to answer anything. I'm going to switch to the Slido. If I can find the, sorry. Yeah, I lost the window. There's too many browser tabs. Okay. All right. And so the first question is, what are some areas of growth for Oppia in 2022? Would any of the panelists like to take
that? I can take it since I spoke about growth. I'm happy to. So we talked a little bit about basically focusing on two big growth areas, one being direct to consumer and the other one being partnerships in the market. I personally feel from all the work that we've been developing that those are the two key areas. And within partnerships specifically, I'm very excited about talking more with large global organizations, because those are the ones that have the scale and the resources that we could really leverage for Oppia. I've been having some discussions with UNICEF and in multiple markets, and they are very excited about the Oppia product. So I'm looking forward to further conversations there. And then I think investing in making it more relevant for local audiences, continuing to invest in translation and localization will be fundamental. And locally or regionally, also think about co-fundraising strategies so we can overcome barriers like the lack of devices and the difficulties in testing and doing more marketing, getting the word out there. I think would be a really interesting area to explore as well. So lots to be done, but I think these are some of the key things that we can leverage to grow Oppia in our priority markets.
Thank you, Anna. And in terms of the next question, what is the deployment or release strategy for Oppia? Perhaps Wojta can answer this a little bit on the website and Ben on the Android side.
Yep. Okay. So for website, we are currently trying to release every month. For some like urgently needed changes, we can always like hot fix them, meaning that we can get them in even outside the release schedule. So and the plan for this year is actually to make the releases much faster, so that it's possible to make more releases in a month more easily, and with some kind of insurance that when we deploy some stuff, we first test it on like 1% of our users, and then only release it fully. So yeah, we want to like get more releases and get them in more faster, so that we can like fix important stuff more easily, and the other parts of Oppia or our users don't need to wait for a long time for some important change.
On the Android side, most of our efforts on release have been spent on one-off targeted releases for studies or to deploy certain features. This year, we're going to be starting to transition more toward regular releases. There's a bunch of stuff that we're doing around both in preparation and actual work in making that happen. But the tentative plan right now is that we'll have at least monthly releases, even if they're not major, to try to develop that regular cadence and expectations. And this will also make it easier to deliver smaller features or even bug fixes to users over time. So there's going to be a lot coming on the release side of Android this year.
All right, thank you, Wojta. Thank you, Ben. What is LACE on the slide, LACE improvements? Diana?
LACE is just an acronym for learner and creator experience. So it's basically the shorter version of the team that focuses on all things related to the creation of lessons, the actual publishing of lessons, and also just the actual experience once you're playing through the lessons or trying to navigate to a lesson.
At Oppia, we love our acronyms. On the Android side, I believe we have the CLAM team, which I believe stands for Core Learner and Mastery. So maybe we should make that our mascot. Okay, Anand asked, would Oppia be willing to partner or team up with very small NGOs? Small NGOs here are ones that are not at the level such as UNICEF, but at a university level. Would anyone from the Brazil, Nigeria growth teams want to comment on that?
Yeah, thanks, Sean. I'm happy to go with that. Well, so from our experience, we find it that we find it easy in many cases that some of those smaller type of organizations are more responsive to partnerships as against the bigger type organizations where your point of contact possibly has tons and tons of other partnerships that they're dealing with, and then things get lost really quickly, right? So if there are opportunities, for instance, to deal with those smaller type NGOs, Oppia is happy to also engage very actively. Thank you.
On the Brazil side, this is also true. We are also happy to engage with smaller partners.
Yeah, I'm just gonna add that, like I said in the presentation, a lot of times these local smaller partners are fundamental for us to get things done in terms of they really know their audiences. They can help us with user studies. They can help us with feedback that is fundamental to make the app work in the markets. They can help us with resources at a very local level. So smaller organizations are actually key for Oppia's expansion. So 100% yes to that.
And I will also underline that, like I think, as part of our focus on equity, it absolutely makes sense to work together with organizations of all shapes and sizes who are helping students who need help, right? There shouldn't be any discounting just because the organization is small. As long as they're helping students who need it, then we should try to be able to help them. So thanks, Alan, for the question. How is Oppia going to handle students with disabilities, taking the example of colorblind? I'll ask Diana to answer for web and Ben for Android.
Yeah, so there are already a couple of things that I think Oppia does do to try to address this a bit, especially the colorblind aspect. We have actually very recently published our own design guide, and we have some UX designers specifically focused on continuing to flesh that out. But one big key standard that I think we've always had with Oppia is making sure that all of our colors are contrasting enough so that somebody who is colorblind or may not have or may have some visual impairments can still be able to view it with enough contrast so that they can actually access the platform. So there are aspects that we already have there, but there's definitely things that I think we could be doing further. I wouldn't say that that's the highest priority right now. I think one of the biggest things is just making sure that the platform itself is scalable and intuitive enough for everyone to navigate, although we'll continue to keep some of those core principles that I already mentioned in mind. But I think if you find any particular issues, or if you have feedback, or you have heard feedback from other folks, definitely I'm always welcome to hear about it and make sure that if there are especially small things that we can change to make it better, I'm not opposed to looking into that further and seeing if there are other ways we can do it. The other thing I'll note for the disability thing is that one unique feature of Oppia is the voiceovers. Voiceovers are especially interesting because they can also help with those that may also be visually impaired, that they can hear the lesson while they're playing through it. And it helps those that can read through the lesson too, but I think that's also a unique feature that we do have, and that I think there are potential ways we can improve that as well that we're looking into.
On the Android side, a lot of our development and design has been very focused on ensuring that there's at least a baseline acceptable accessibility experience using on-device screen readers like Samsung's or TalkBack. We've developed our own accessibility testing matrix that we are integrating into our new QA process. And it's also part of our technical design process for all features that are being developed. There's still a lot that we have to do in this area, especially around interactions and just broad areas where accessibility can be improved. But there's an ongoing effort for that, including adding night mode to ensure contrast works better in environments where you might not want the really bright colors of the app. So I'm going to reflect exactly what Diana said. There's a lot of people working on this, but if you have feedback, please reach out and let us know. Accessibility is a really important area. We want to make sure the app works for everybody.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you, Ben. Okay, any funding or collaborations for Oppia? So I believe this question was actually asked before the whole presentation. So now hopefully you have some sense of like the different collaborations that are going on in the different areas, but I'll touch on just a few of them at a high level. So in terms of funding, we actually got to the final round of a prize competition for educational technology solutions. And we are hoping to hear the results soon this month. So, if that works out, then that may be one example. We've also gotten some funding from EdTech Hub to handle the research study and to do some development needed for that. And of course, one of our biggest collaborations this year is with the EdTech Hub on the big research study in Kenya. There's some work that we are also doing with international organizations like UNICEF to try and make Oppia available to the audience they have, and also they are planning to do a landscape review on learning platforms targeting low and middle income countries, and Oppia is one of the ones that is in that report. So these are some examples of the different things that we are looking at. We are continuing to look for more. And so if you have any ideas, don't hesitate to reach out and let us know about it. So thank you for the question. Okay, it looks like we are short on volunteers in the translator space. What can we do to improve hiring volunteers? Anyone would like to take that?
Yeah, I can take that. I think yeah, this has been a problem that we have had in terms of some of the languages have volunteers while some other do not. So I think this is a shout out to everyone in this team. I think I'm seeing 52 people in this team. Please put the word out, and we have postings for the key languages that we want to hire in on volunteermatch.com. So I can Sean, probably as when you share the email out, please share all the volunteer match postings. I'll share them with you, and really want everyone to share on your own social media accounts, and ask your friends and family to join the revolution, I guess.
Sounds good. Yeah, thanks, Manu. Yeah, I'll try to make clear in the post email I send out just to try and include these links so that if you know anyone who's interested, you can ask them if they would like to help. So thank you. Okay, what is the procedure that we follow to connect to the local audience? Like at the ground level, how do we reach out to our audience and select our beta users? Anyone? I think this perhaps ties more to the Android app, perhaps. So I wonder whether Ben or Isolo or Anna, you would like to weigh in?
I can try to provide some insight here, but I'm not going to be as knowledgeable as others. So at a high level, a lot of what this comes down to is reaching out to individual NGOs or smaller groups and trying to like structure more specific user studies or pilots that interact directly with students. And we've got a lot of past structure that we leverage here to make sure that students are individually supported, which helps us better understand like how the app will be reaching certain individuals. We don't yet have a criteria for selecting beta users, but the general idea at the moment is that we'll be picking larger, kind of like the same style of pilots or studies, but larger groups. We still kind of want to know who's accessing the app. We're not looking for like a 10,000 plus user beta yet, but we do want to see longer running and larger groups that will well overlap with the type of material that we're teaching. We may not know everyone that's in the group at this point, given the size of beta, but we still need to be closely connected enough that we can respond to feedback and understand how the app is working or not working, as that's kind of the whole point of this first beta launch. If this isn't a fully satisfying answer, please follow up and we can connect you with folks who can provide more insight on it.
Okay, thank you very much, Ben. And yes, we've actually gotten to the top of the hour, so I think we'll actually stop here. So thank you all very much for attending. Thank you for your thoughtful questions, and thank you so much to all the presenters and to the community as a whole, to all of you as a whole for the help that you've been providing to the project and for helping improve education around the world. We'll send a feedback form later. Don't worry about copying down this link. We'll send it in the follow-up email. But if you have any questions or want to sort of like touch base with us or anything like that, just feel free to send an email. If you're not sure who to send it to, if you send it to me, I will try to make sure it gets to the right folks. So thank you all very much again for attending, and hope you have a great week ahead. Take good care and see you. Bye.